Welcome back to Comicsburgh. We're here with Jim Semonik of Distortion Productions, and also the inspiration for a comic book about the industrial music scene. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you very much for having me.
So, what is your secret origin story? How did you discover comics and industrial music in Beaver County in the 90s?
That is two completely separate things, but I'll start with origin story. That's what this is. Okay, comics basically since I was real little, and my mom would take me to any newsstand or whatever, and I would just get what looked cool. And I was a little boy, so into anything with monsters or robots or superheroes. So essentially, as I got older, as with anybody, I'm sure your tastes become more refined, and you tend to gravitate towards certain things. And I was always into growing up 80s pop culture stuff. Had the coolest cartoons, toys, anything from Transformers, G.I. Joe, Star Wars was my first love. So, ever since I was apparently, according to my parents, they took me to a drive-in to see the original Star Wars in '77 when I was 1. I don't remember that. I do remember seeing Return of the Jedi in theaters, though, when I was 6 in '83. So, going from there and just being into all that stuff and getting all the toys and just, I don't know, that was my childhood, was that kind of stuff. And either the Transformers comic book that Bob Budiansky wrote the first 55 issues of, and then Simon Furman took over at 56 and through the rest of the run, that takes me up through adolescence, and then I remember walking into a newsstand and picking up the Infinity Gauntlet in was it summer after 9th grade? It was 91, so I was about to be in 10th grade. Infinity Gauntlet #1. I was like, this looks interesting. It looks like it has everybody. So I picked it up and I was blown away. I was like, there's this guy named Thanos who I immediately took to, and another character who I took to even more called Adam Warlock. Still to this day is my favorite character of all time.
Well, I mean, my brother's a big fan of Adam Warlock, also. Beta Ray Bill.
Beta Ray Bill's awesome.
Beta Ray Bill, yes.
Yeah,
oh,
love
yeah.
Beta Ray Bill.
Absolutely.
Big, it was usually like the more cosmic end of the Marvel stuff that I was really into. Silver Surfer, Galactus.
I was gonna ask about Silver Surfer.
You pretty much had to pick up Silver Surfer comics to get all those tertiary characters like Beta Ray and Nova, Galactus, all the heralds and stuff like that. So I was super into that stuff in high school. Then, like, sort of towards the end of high school, that stuff started to, I don't know, the comic boom, as they call it, from the 90s started to, really have its impact on the industry. So a lot of titles were getting canceled. A lot of the focus from the cosmic stuff wasn't really played. The Infinity Stones got thrown into like some other universe and stuff. And I just started to lose interest. I was like, this is not the same. Jim Starlin left, at that point, and he was my main guy at Marvel. I loved reading Jim Starlin stuff. All that whole Infinity trilogy was brilliant. But around that time, in high school, I would go to local shows, see local bands play, and here in the Beaver County area, there were bands like Paris Green, Bungee Jambo from Pittsburgh would come down regularly and play.
Yeah.
And me and my friend Don would always go to the local shows to check them out, because really there was nothing much else to do for kids that were into music.
Yeah.
So there was a really cool little scene going on down here. That's sort of grunge influenced, indie rock influence, and that's kind of stuff I listened to in high school. Was a lot of grunge rock. I was a freshman when Kurt Cobain broke.
Yeah.
And kind of hit me at the right. I was perfect age for that.
Yeah.
And it was sort of an epiphany for me, because before that, music was stuff like Motley Crue and Poison and stuff like that. Stuff that a 14-year-old kid who was awkward. The girls couldn't relate to partying and doing drugs and drinking and getting loaded every night.
And and supermodels dancing on the top of cars and everything.
Exactly. Exactly. So, then Nirvana came out, all those grunge bands, and just started getting into stuff deeper. While I was a senior, Kurt Cobain died towards the end of my senior year, like that April, and I was devastated, like a lot of people were. So I kind of gravitated away from that kind of music, and as weird as like the next month was when I saw my first industrial show.
Yeah.
Was, Don and I were sitting around here, being like, I'm 2 weeks out from graduating high school. I want to see some bands. What's at the Metropole tonight? And we looked through a city paper or whatever, and saw that KMFDM was playing the Metropole with ChemLab and Sister Machine Gun. I'm like, well, I never heard those other two, but I saw, I think, a video from KMFDM. I heard some of their stuff. Let's go check that out. And we went, okay? And we got there probably like 7:30 in the evening. We missed Sister Machine Gun. I'm not sure what happened, or the promoter made them go on early, but we missed them. And we were, walked in, we just saw the stage loaded with all this other stuff that we had never seen before, like, for a regular rock show. Keyboards, drums with like digital pads, and like,
Nice.
Dawn looked at that and was just like, oh my God, look at all that stuff, and I was just like, wow, this is, it's really interesting. Everyone around us was clad in black, goth attire, and it was unusual for for us. We had just, read of industrial music in magazines and stuff like that, and whatever they would cover on like Headbangers Ball or whatever, and it got to the point where Nine Inch Nails and Ministry were really the only industrial bands we knew. Front 242, to a lesser extent, we saw their performance at Lollapalooza, and wasn't really a good experience. Like, you put an industrial band on stage in the middle of the day outside, it's not necessarily a good mix.
It kind of loses some of that magic, some of that showmanship and everything. And so,
yeah.
And that was kind of what you gravitated to, I take it.
Yes,
so,
yeah. Like, a big Nine Inch Nails fan, big Ministry fan. Broken had come out.
Nice.
So seeing the stage loaded up with stuff like that, I didn't know what to expect, really.
Yeah.
And then it goes down, and the lights go down. I see a dude come out in like a black lab coat, goggles on his head, jet black hair, and he was just had a stage persona that really set the bar for me for what a live show should be.
Yeah.
It was incredible. Like, the crowd went nuts. The energy was just insane. And KMFDM, while I became a huge fan of them later in life, or even the next year, didn't really faze me that night. ChemLab was the main. I walked out of the club thinking, wow, everything sucks compared to that. I was just blown away. So that was what started me on that.
How did you start your own bands, and which ones are most active in the scene right now?
That's a good question. I started in probably 99, 2000 with Mindless Faith. I was in that band for like a hot minute. And from there, met a couple guys from Pitt, formed the Forced band. That went for a few years. That sort of evolved into Reinforced. That went for several more years, did a little bit of touring. And then Red Lokust, which is my current project, started in 2016 with Lee from Aslan Faction. And we just put out our second album last year, right before lockdown. So, haven't gotten to play one of those songs yet, so still dying to play live. So, and I also have a new band called Battlefront with Ice Antilla and Go Fight members. So those are where the latter two are the active ones.
How did you start promoting industrial music shows, and how did you start your label?
That is two separate things. The label came about 12 years after promoting the shows. So promoting the shows started with many trips to Cleveland to see the bands we wanted to see. around 96 to about 2000. We just got tired of it, you know. It was just like, you know, I want to promote bands in Pittsburgh that I want to see, you know, so we don't have to go as far, you know. And so I did my first show at Club Laga in 2000. And that just went on and on and on and on, and now I'm close to 200 shows promoted total, at like 196 right now. So something special for 200, maybe. The label was completely different. That basically spun out of me getting sick, and in 2008 was when I got sick. 2012 is when the label officially started. Basically spun out of Electronic Saviors.
Speaking of which, what is the story behind the Electronic Saviors compilation series, and what was the motivation behind that?
The motivation was essentially getting sick. I was diagnosed in 2008 with stage 2B colorectal cancer. Lost a good portion of my digestive system, my gallbladder, a bunch of stuff. Most people don't even survive that level, because later on I found out it was stage 3. They just didn't know as much then. So music was the primary focus for me to even get through it. During radiation treatments, they would let me bring in my own stuff to listen to. So it was like 30 minutes, 45 minutes of listening to my own stuff while getting zapped. And after surgery, I did, you know, post-op chemo, which was brutal. And then pancreatitis resulted from that, which almost killed me. So after that, I started taking this idea of maybe a compilation would be cool, a little bit more seriously, because it was just an idea before that. So this was volume 1. Came out on Metropolis Records with like sort of a partnership with Distortion in 2010. I've done one of these every 2 years since, all the way up until last year. Was volume 6. The motivation was basically I was still here, and I needed to sort of honor those that aren't. My father being one of them. This is one of the whole reasons I ended up getting sick, was because of the genetic connection there. But there were so many friends and family members and seen people that I had never met that were so touched by this, that had that experience with cancer, that now if you look at the dedications in each album, a lot of those people aren't here anymore. And some very good friends and loved ones. And so there wasn't really much of an inspiration needed, other than I'm still here, those people aren't, and I want to be able to keep giving, you know. And one of the goals was, after we did the first one, was we donated $23K.
Oh wow.
And for volume 2 was another 10. Volume 3 was another 10. Volume 4 was 12. Volume 5 was 15. Volume 6, our most successful volume ever, 25. We have now donated a total of $100,001. Because I wanted to get over that 100K. That was the goal from the beginning. We did. It made the last donation that we made an awkward price, which went to Young Adult Survivors United. We've donated to Gilda's Club. We've donated to our clubhouse. We've donated to the University of Pittsburgh, the colorectal research department there. Bone Marrow Foundation in New York. So various different. There's Cat for Kids in Colorado. We donated to them. And some suicide prevention stuff actually in Chicago. Darkest Before Dawn.
Oh, that's really incredible.
Thank you.
Tell me a bit about being a fan of Transformers and your release, Respect the Prime.
Okay. That goes back to childhood, as I mentioned. The 86 movie, which I saw in theaters when I was 10. Traumatized a lot of young kids. Not me, though. Optimus Prime's death didn't bother me, but I do respect him. So essentially, when I was doing the Saviors comps, I wanted to do something a little bit outside of the box and sort of bridge my love of Transformers and industrial music. So I was like, I should do like a covers album of the '86 soundtrack, which was like all hair metal bands. I was like, industrial versions of that, cool. All right, so I licensed the tracks officially, and just started contacting a lot of the bands I've worked with through Saviors, and everyone was on board. It remains to this day my best seller, and got Casey Collar and John Paul Beauvais from IDW Comics that I met through going to the Transformers conventions, the TF cons. I met those dudes, connected with them immediately, and told them my idea, and they were like, yes, like Casey and John were like, those two guys are top people. I mean, I love those guys, and that ended up it ended up being such a success that we sold out of the initial pressing. So I did a convention edition where I added some bonus tracks, and this time I got Nick Roche and Josh Perez from IDW. Nick has gone on to do some stuff for Marvel, I think. Also two really great guys, Nick and Josh. And then we put out a vinyl for it, which brought back Casey and John's original art. So those are sort of what I call Electronic Saviors spin-off records. We're doing one for the Crow soundtrack called Draven's Mixtape, which will be out in September. It's the Crow soundtrack from '94. Same deal. Saviors remains to be the main focus, but that is how Saviors is going to go forward.
And branch out a bit.
Yeah, with sort of these soundtracks and special projects. No more box sets.
How did a series of comic books get made involving the industrial music scene and the Distortion label?
That would be all a guy named Jeremy Frazier, who I met through the Cold Wave scene, and he doesn't live in the States. He lives way over in Asia, and he contacted me about being interested in doing an Electronic Saviors comic, which ended up coming to fruition, and that would be this, and involved like a bunch of people from the scene and myself, shrinking down to a microscopic size to go into cancer patients' bodies and eradicating.
That's cool.
Yeah, so yeah. Synthcore Dreams came in two parts. Actually, there's another part being worked on right now. But that's Jeremy. This is all Jeremy's baby. Like, he reached out to me, wanted to incorporate scene people, musicians from the industrial scene into a comic and have a soundtrack to go along with it. And I was like, well, yeah, we can make it a Saviors thing. Sure. I mean, I like the passion for his work. He ended up putting this out through us. It was, I think, 2 years ago now, and it's a great piece, a great, entertaining. It's a lot of futuristic stuff and robots, and I think my bandmate ended up like a head in a jar at one point. So, yeah, it's cool. It's a cool project.
What are your plans in the future for Distortion Productions, your band? Will there be more comic books?
There should be, yeah. Synthcore Dreams, the next volume, is in production now. Shows, do want to hit that number 200, as I mentioned. There'll be more covers, soundtrack type things in the future. Like I said, Draven's Mixtape, The Crow. Lee and I are starting on the third Red Lokust record. The Battlefront with Ice and Tilla and the Go Fight and Rick from Mindless Faith, those guys are all in this band, and we might be doing more stuff with that project. If it is, it's going to be more fun things like 90s covers that we all like doing. So that is essentially what's going on. I mean, the label is still going pretty strong. We have Lorelei Dreaming's record dropping next month, and a new Silverwalks record. We have a new Trade Secrets coming. That's all in the fall. There's, we signed Dog Tablet from the UK, which is Martin from Test Department. We're going to be putting out a double disc by them. So the label is essentially the main focus right now. So there is just a ridiculous amount of stuff on the way. I mean, so I'm not resting on my laurels. I guess I will be very productive in 2022.
Thanks for talking with Comicsburgh, Jim.
Thank you so much for having me. This was awesome.